To help us sort through some of this that took place today in our nation's capital is my next guest, Michael Hart of The Michael Hart Show. Welcome back to America Trends. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Gina.
And I'm telling you, Michael, you and I have worked in media together for, I don't know how many years now. 4 years?
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
And I can honestly tell you that we don't have, you remember the good old days, Michael, where we were getting ready to go live on the radio and we had nothing because it was a quote unquote slow news day? We don't have those anymore. Did you notice?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've said many times, Gina, that now with the news cycle being the way that it is, we no longer look for the stories we're going to talk about. We look for the ones we're going to have to omit because we're absolutely inundated. I was on the air this evening for 4 hours and never left this one particular story.
Yeah, it really has gotten just overwhelming. I want to talk for a moment about what Comey said today, Director Comey, when he was questioned by different congressmen on the committee. Michael, this woman wouldn't qualify for FBI security clearance.
Right.
But she's
right.
trying to convince us that she is the most qualified, based on her experience, to be president of the United States. I noticed she's been silent today. What do you think is happening in the Clinton camp today?
Well, quite frankly, I think they're scurrying around a lot. You know, the BBC announced earlier today that according to them, the State Department was going to reopen the investigation. We would only assume predicated on what we learned today in the Comey hearing. I can't imagine what's going through Hillary Clinton's mind because it's pretty evident, and even the original clip that you played this evening is what really speaks volumes to me, that Comey did not fully vet out the information that was given to various sources while she was under oath. So the security issue is one aspect of it, but then there's the whole possibility of whether or not she perjured herself. But Comey danced around the issue a good portion of the day, but I think it was pretty obvious to anybody with an IQ above 90 that if she was an employee of the FBI, she would not have survived in terms of her career, and if she was a new hire, she never would have made the cut.
No, if this were Michael Hart in Birmingham, Alabama, they would have busted down your door. They would have confiscated everything that had anything to do with your server, your computer, your phones,
Absolutely.
the rest of it. They would have held you indefinitely. They would have, I mean, this would have been a completely different story. And it isn't lost on most common people out there that we are talking about lifetime bureaucrats investigating a lifetime establishment politician. Do you think this plays to Donald Trump's favor?
Well, I think that's up to Donald Trump. I think that it certainly could. I think that if he is able to capitalize on it without being vitriolic, you know, it's a long time pattern of Clinton behavior. A lot of people don't realize that back in 1996, there was the Whitewater Investigative Panel, and James Comey was actually the deputy counsel who at that time was investigating Hillary Clinton over her handling of documents related to Whitewater and the fact that with the sometimes considered suspicious death of Vince Foster, that the Clinton operatives went to his office, removed documents, took them back to the White House, and that even back in 1996, Comey and his team had said that Clinton's conduct was unbecoming, that it was mysterious, and that in fact it was inappropriate. So the ironic thing about this to me, Gina, is that this week the FBI came to the exact same conclusion about her malfeasance as it relates to document handling as the Whitewater Commission did 20 years ago.
I want to give you a chance to finish about this timeline issue, about the fact that they met with the FBI met with Hillary on Saturday. I know they didn't work on the 4th of July. I doubt they worked on Sunday. And all of a sudden, the announcement comes down on Monday or Tuesday. Hillary's ready to go, jetting around with Obama an hour later. It's just very hard to believe this timeline.
Well, it is, Gina. And you know what's interesting is that presumably the investigation took well over a year, but the FBI, and apparently in the absence of Comey, was also able to condense it down to a 3-hour discussion. And there was, according to his own testimony today, 4 or 5 agents that were actually present at the exact same time. and yet, they were able to break down the conversation with Mrs. Clinton over the weekend to 3 hours, but yet today the hearing was twice that long, and we still didn't get all the answers. So it is rather suspicious. I find the fact that this was such a high-profile investigation, and there was no transcripts, there was no audio, there was nothing written down, there's nothing for Comey, and Chavez even asked for it. There's nothing to present the House Investigation Committee any documentation whatsoever of what transpired. It's kind of like Bill and Loretta Lynch's meeting vis-a-vis Arizona, where there was just apparently grandkids and golf being discussed.
Yeah. It's very, very difficult to believe. The whole thing is honestly difficult to believe that our politics has come to a place where that much corruption can take place. I think Comey basically admitted today that he knows pretty much that Hillary lied to the public, but they didn't think to question her about that. I still find it really odd that from that interview there are no transcripts, no videotapes. What about the most transparent administration in history? I guess Hillary's not even going to claim that one, is she?
Well, it's very difficult to do that. Of course, Barack Obama claimed that going in, and we've seen anything but. But, it is transparent if you claim that it's transparent. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans do buy into that. You got to bear in mind that although your audience is quite large and mine is massive as well, we still represent a rather small portion of the American public that seems to be the least bit interested in any of this. It's been painted as a witch hunt. Look at the Democrats that were on the panel as well. My God, they were fawning over Comey the entire time. If I heard one time that he was a great guy with a stellar career, I must have heard it 25 times. And then they also brought in all the racial tension in the country, with one of them even bringing up the issue of white supremacy. I don't understand what took place today. The Democrats accused the Republicans of political theater. They're not the ones that were acting in this particular case. It was, in fact, Elijah Cummings et al., and the whole thing was farcical. I don't know that Mr. Comey is guilty of any kind of malfeasance, but it's obvious, at least he believes, there is no winnable case here.
And maybe the fact that Donald Trump is, polls vary, but the one poll that doesn't vary is that he is beating Hillary by double digits with uncommitted voters. And maybe this is why. Maybe it is resonating more than we think, Michael. I want to transfer ourselves just for a moment over to the VP choice. Today, well, first, I guess, Donald Trump met with Newt Gingrich, and
yes,
Donald Trump also met with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, viable option for vice president? What's your choice there?
I absolutely, positively hope not. And the reason for that is I think that Ted Cruz would be a wonderful nominee for the Supreme Court as a vice presidential candidate. He's essentially negated to having no influence for, well, at least 4 years, possibly even 8. And then he has a presidency that can run the course of 8 more years. He could serve in the Supreme Court as a conservative voice, a dependable conservative voice for 25, 30, 35 years. I think he would be a wonderful nominee to fill the seat vacated by the deceased Antonin Scalia or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Kennedy, I think, is 79 years old now. I love the idea of a Trump nominating Cruz for the Supreme Court and looking elsewhere.
So who do you want for the VP?
No idea. All I know is I love Newt Gingrich. I think he's a great guy. I know Senator Jeff Sessions. I think he's a great guy. But I'm going to say something that's probably just a little bit rude. I'm not sure that the old white guy ticket really needs to happen in this case.
Oh, no, you did not go there. Oh, Michael Hart, we're going to have to talk now because, see, to me, you pick the person that's going to fortify an administration. You don't worry about the goofy gender identity politics.
I understand that. I'm not looking at the qualifications here. I'm looking at the narrative, the optic that Hillary Clinton, if she survives this, could actually foment. And I don't know that, Joni Ernst has already said she's not interested. I don't know if it needs to be an African American. I don't know if it needs to be a female. I just think that America at this stage of the game, they've proven themselves so antithetical to the political process as we understand it, that bringing somebody in, it doesn't need to be Palin-esque either, and they certainly need to have qualifications. And I don't want to pander to a certain ethnic or gender group. But at the same time, bringing in, we've talked about the same old tired, rehashed retreads. And as brilliant as Gingrich is, I think he'd be perceived that way.
See, I just completely disagree with you. I think that he.
Well, you like Alabama, so take that into consideration.
No, I think that the pandering has got to stop. I think I feel like we bought that line with Dole and others, and I feel like, in Romney, like every time they said, oh, we have to pander to this group, or we have to pander to that group, or we have to pander to the middle. And I hate that whole idea, and I don't think the American public is that stupid. I don't know, maybe they are. I'm starting to wonder, because the whole they think we're stupid thing, it's sort of falling into place as we're all letting Hillary get away with this. So I don't know. So you don't really have a choice. I'm surprised you didn't say Sessions. I thought Sessions was going to be your choice.
I like Sessions, but something else you have to bear in mind, we have to be thinking 8 years down the road as well. If you bring in a Sessions or you bring in a Gingrich, then you're going to have the opportunity to bring in a non-incumbent to run in 8 years if, in fact, a Trump would survive that long. Both of these guys are getting a little bit long in the tooth. I like a little bit of youth. I like some vibrance. No, it's not Cantor or Paul Ryan or any of that ilk. Some people even proposed the idea on my program of a Rand Paul. I have to say I flirted with that idea for about 32 seconds. But the simple reality of it is I think we need some fresh young blood. Mike Pence has been bantered around a little bit.
Yes.
I do like Chris Christie. But I'd like to see an up-and-comer. And for me, it's not necessarily Marco Rubio, but I think he might be Rubio-esque.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting to watch. We know that much. My prediction, Michael, and I've said this on Fox the last couple days in a row, actually, my prediction is that it will be someone that is unpredictable. Somebody that we haven't thought of yet, that Donald Trump just pulls out of his hat, because that's kind of how he rolls, as you know. What do you think about that?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, might be.
Yes, it is.
All right, Michael Hart, thank you so much for being with us. Catch him at Michael Hart Show coming up next.